Hey guys, Trouble T Cat here, recording for the Zombie Arcade, playing some BF3, or rather I did play some BF3 earlier, as this is not a live commentary. This is a scavenger match I played here. Anyway, what I wanted to talk to you guys about today was actually not about BF3, but rather about Battlefield 4, which is, of course, coming out in late October, October 29th. And we've now seen quite a lot of multiplayer footage from. You may recall I've been pretty skeptical about BF4 from the stuff we'd initially seen. From single player, the first footage they released, it kind of looked not that different. There were a lot of the stuff that bothered me about BF3 seemed to still be in the game. We've now seen a lot more footage. We've seen a bunch of multiplayer. In fact, they streamed just unscripted multiplayer gameplay from E3 for about 3 days straight. So we've seen a lot of the game now, and now is a good time, I think, myself having watched that, to start to break down and talk about what I think the game is going to end up like, particularly the multiplayer side of things, which is probably the most important thing to the vast majority of people. So I'm going to talk about some things that I have seen and heard that I thought were really cool. I'm going to talk about some things that I don't like. And I'm going to talk about some things where we still don't know enough to make a determination. In that order. So, the things we've seen so far that I really, really liked a lot. Commander mode looks great. I think the feature where you can play that from a tablet PC is kind of cool for people who own a tablet PC and want something to do on the train or bus and stuff like that. That's a cool feature. But for the most part, I just think it's really good that they're bringing back Commander mode. It's something the community's really been asking for. And it looks like it works really good. It looks good. It's a little bit different from how it worked in BF2 in a few ways. One of the ways is that the commanders are not actually taken from the regular 64 pool of 64 players on the server. They're like these additional players, so there's a total of actually 66 people connecting to a single game, 64 regular players and 2 commanders, which is a nice touch. Unlocking different commander powers through map control, and I mean the sort of stable of powers the commanders have access to looks like it's going to be a bit extended, a little bit different from what you had in BF2, so that's cool. Spectator mode, that is something that is really, 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 really good news that's coming in, because you guys may recall back when BF3 was first about to come out, I really wanted this to be kind of an esports title, and it didn't end up happening. And I mean, compared to stuff like CS or Quake or StarCraft, this game is not hard at all and doesn't really belong in esports. But the way modern esports work, popular games end up in esports if they support the right features, and I think this game would definitely be a more interesting competitive game, Battlefield in general that is, than Call of Duty. So, but that wasn't possible before, pretty much because we didn't have spectator mode. That is now in. It also made it a lot harder for things like good moderation of servers, where, you can go into spectator mode and then watch people in first person and see if it looks like they're hacking, that kind of stuff. Without spectator mode, you can't do it. So that's a really, really good feature. I'm really glad they brought in spectator mode. I still think it's kind of batshit insane that it wasn't in BF3. That's actually really bad that they left that out. But it's going to be in the next game. Let's just focus on the positives for now. Other thing I really, really liked was the new Destruction. It looks like there's some pretty cool shit going on. We've seen things like, the underground train station. You should blow up some pillars there, and then parts of the floor collapse. Huge skyscraper can explode. They're calling it Levolution. I think it's a fucking dumb shoehorned in term, but basically the map destruction looks good. You're gonna have to wait till the game comes out to see how much it's used, so how much it feels like an organic part of the gameplay versus these few couple of scripted things. That's gonna be the kind of real deciding factor as to whether or not that's awesome or just kind of alright, but it looks good right now. So those are basically some really, really good points about the game, things that I've been really happy to see, and have... the other thing was the art style. What we've seen so far, the first single-player trailer they released was fucking looked terrible, completely washed out and fucking thousands of things blinding you outside, looked fucking bad. But the multiplayer map we've been seeing, Siege of Shanghai, is not blue. It's it's a little bit more washed out than you maybe see in real life, but it looks good. And there's not, the sun's not in a position where it's blinding you 24/7. There's not as much random shit flapping around the map, with no reason as there were in some of the maps in BF3. The art style, it looks like they've gained a little bit of control of their minds, and assuming they don't... You do have to keep in mind that with BF3, the decision to make the art style blue and blinding you constantly did come in pretty late. The early alphas that people played didn't have the hyper blue. They added in afterwards, so they may still do that with BF4. I am praying that they keep the game having some kind of semblance of color and actually looking like reality, not some kind of weird underwater world. On most of the maps, anyway. I mean, this particular map I'm playing right here is more of a yellow tint, but it's not important right now. Most of the maps are blue as shit, and they all have this weird thing with, like, hyper blinding you and stuff like that. Again, this map's one of the least offensive they released. I'm hoping they won't change their minds and add blue to BF4 based on... It seems likely that they will not do that because the later DLCs for BF3 didn't have the hyper fucking terrible art style. They sort of toned back on that. So that was really good to see as well, is that maybe the game won't blind my eyes with blue and blindingness constantly 24/7. The things that I was not so hot on. It does still look like the game is going to feel pretty much exactly the same as BF3. The graphical/engine improvement is pretty minor. You can definitely tell they did improve the graphics in BF4 versus BF3, but it's not like a huge slap in the face difference, which is okay. It's only been a couple years and the game does look very good, but it's still, it looks very samey in terms of how it's going to play. And I mean, I know you're probably saying the thing like, yeah, duh, of course it's going to be samey in how it plays, it's another Battlefield game, but you have to realize that in the past, every, other Battlefield game has changed up the gameplay pretty significantly in between installments, and that's important because it gives games their own identity. And for example, I've played a shitload of BF3 to the point where I'm pretty bored of the game now. And if BF4 is too much like BF3, I'm not going to get much fun out of it because I've already played BF3. There needs to be, in a franchise of games, similarity between the sequels, but what we've been seeing a lot recently in big franchises is not enough difference to make each game feel fresh, feel unique, and have its own identity. And it looks like with Battlefield 4, you are pretty much going to get the same basic gameplay experience, even though they've shoved in these other cool features that do enhance it. And there are more things that I did think were cool or good that I didn't even mention. Changes to suppression, melee counterattacks, the fucking jet skis look awesome. So there are a lot of little new features that I think are going to make the game more fun. But I'm still concerned that they won't have changed the core experience enough for it to feel fresh for somebody like me who's played like 800 hours of BF3. And that's important. And I'm not convinced they've done that. So the graphics, not a massive upgrade, and more importantly, I think the gameplay right now is looking a bit too samey. And I hope that I'm wrong on this one, because right now it looks like I'm gonna find BF4 not that exciting because it's gonna be BF3 again. Maybe it'll feel different when you actually play it. I don't know. It doesn't look like it right now, so I'm a bit. I'm a little bit uncomfortable with where that seems to be at, but that's those are the only really strong things that I have to say that are hyper negative that I've seen that are bad. A lot of people will be pissed off that there's no mod support, and that is disappointing when you consider the series' roots with BF2 and the earlier Battlefield games having all these amazing mods for them. Things like Desert Combat, Point of Existence. I played a bunch of those mods. I can't remember the names of half of the things I played. It is disappointing considering the series lineage that there still won't be any mod support, but I think that's something where people just kind of have to let it go. It's very unfortunate and it's sad, and for me it represents kind of the death of an era of gaming which I consider to be golden when things were highly modded and there was this wonderful community. But guys, I know it's sad, but it's gone. And it might come back in the indie market, but in the AAA market for the foreseeable future, it's gone. And that's something we're just going to all have to accept. So there are still a few things that are important to know about the game where we don't know enough yet. The two things I'm thinking of right now are VoIP, in-game VoIP for PC, which was missing from BF3, even though, again, like spectator mode, it is a feature that should be assumed to be included. There's no excuse for leaving it out. We don't know yet whether or not that will be in BF4. It hasn't been confirmed one way or another as far as I can tell. The rumors seem to strongly suggest that there will be in-game VoIP for PC. I would find it very strange if there was not. That will probably be in the game. If it's not, that'd be pretty bad. I personally don't use in-game VoIP in most games, but Battlefield is the kind of game where you need it. Especially with the new Commander mode, you do want the Commander being able to coordinate people with the VoIP and stuff. And if it was in there and people used it, it could make the game a lot more fun, because there'd be actual teamwork going on, instead of people fucking just running around with chickens with their heads cut off, like you get for the most part in BF3, because there's no really good way to communicate. So we don't know 100% for sure about the VoIP, or at least nothing I've seen has 100% confirmed it, but it is strongly suggested there will be VoIP on PC, in-game, so that'd be good once we know for certain. The other thing is something that's a little bit harder to pin down, and a lot of people seem to have pretended was not an issue in BF3 or didn't notice it, but it was there, and it was a big problem for anyone who is actually fucking observant and who has actually played any other video games that did not have this fun little feature, which would be, I really, really hope the hit registration, the netcode, is unfucked in BF4. You know, if I'm still getting shot, 1,000 milliseconds, like a full second, or even 1,500 milliseconds around a corner when my ping is 30 milliseconds or less in BF4, I will be considerably upset. Because it's not just the fact that you occasionally get shot around a corner, it's also, like, the bad netcode in BF3 makes everything feel kind of weird and disconnected and not quite as responsive as it should. Like, it gives the game this weird kind of floaty feeling, at least to people like myself and my friends who have been guys playing multiplayer shooters for a long time and are used to games that don't have really, really fucked up netcode. And that's something that it's going to be hard to tell until it's actually played. Like, you can't really tell from watching whether or not the game is going to have that issue. So we don't know about that yet. And, I mean, DICE had maintained throughout BF3's entire life cycle that the netcode was fine, which it's not. Even the way they handled this made me really upset, and I'm not sure it'll be fixed. And if that's not fixed, it's going to severely hurt my enjoyment of the game. That's like something it's so key for me, that the game feels good to play, and for that to happen, you need the netcode to not feel like this weird, cheap ghetto thing where you get shot around corners, where you can shoot people around corners, where sometimes you'll fire a shotgun in BF3, and you know that the shot killed them because you don't fire again, but they won't die for like a second after you shot them. Like, you'll fire the shot, and then you'll pump and ready the next shot, and they'll be like running away, and then they'll die from the shot you just fired. That happens in BF3 because there's something really, really, really wrong with the netcode in BF3, and I don't know what it is. I'm not the guy in charge of that shit for DICE, obviously, but they need to fix it, whatever the fuck it is that's wrong with the netcode in BF3. That's a huge, huge issue to me, because it really, really does make the game feel like cheap and flimsy and not like a good thing to play. So those are my impressions so far of the BF4 multiplayer that we've seen. Overall, very positive. I'm really, really happy with some of the stuff. The Commander mode, I'm really, really happy about that, particularly. That's really good. And the Spectator mode, that's really, really good as well. For me, BF3 seemed like it had like the core of a great game, but it didn't quite make it. It was more like a 7.5, 8 out of 10 kind of game, and it just needed like this little push, a little bit less ghetto, a little bit less of a terrible art style, and a few missing features to really hit it and be an amazing game. And my hope has been that DICE will do that in BF4. They will realize the potential of their awesome engine and make a Battlefield game that really does stand up to the likes of BF2, Battlefield Vietnam, which was my personal favorite, 1942. Those games. And there's a chance they will do that. I'm still hopeful. Overall, good impressions. I will be purchasing the game, and I hope we'll see you guys on the battlefield. So thanks for watching. Until next time, Triple T Cat out.